5 years ago. What he did was he took this blue dog and put the blue dog in lots of situations. Like blue dog in front of the White House, blue dog in front of, as a clown, blue dog here and there and everywhere in New York City. And people, it's fun. In fact, there's still a blue dog museum in New Orleans, although he had passed away. And it's just fun. William Wegman, have y'all ever seen this before? Yeah. And this is the Weimaraners that he's closely associated with. And what he did is sort of kooky. He's a photographer that takes Weimaraners and places them in props or situations where they kind of look like people. So he's like anthropomorphizing, am I saying that right? The dogs. And it's wildly popular. It's on like calendars. So yeah, they're so cute. And he's been doing it for years. He's still alive and still doing it. So really cute, really interesting that he became so popular doing that. This is in 1980s in New York City. This is a graffiti artist that was also strange because you wouldn't associate him being a graffiti artist. He's white, he's an educated man, a young man, and he went to an art school, art college, but he broke away from all that stereotype and decided to be a graffiti artist and paint, or draw, I should say, on these empty New York City billboards in the subways. And he was a homosexual, and a lot of his artwork is very pro-gay and anti-drug and pro-gay rights, but also spreading the information of AIDS and HIV. So at this time there was a gay man's, basically a health crisis in that area, and eventually, sadly, he did contract HIV and die, I think right before he became hugely big and right before he was 30 or 32 years old. But so these dogs, through my research, I've realized or learned that these dogs represent youthful innocence and a purity and a goodness and potential. This is sort of his tag, and the tag, it's believed that the tag, which is the dog, represents maybe the government or power or authority. And if you really look at it, and I know it's childish and it seems rudimentary, it seems basic, but if you really look at it, they're not listening to each other. They're making a lot of noise. But some of them aren't even facing each other. So when I read that, I thought it was really interesting because it makes a lot of sense at that time. I'll give you a quick example. As a New Yorker that I am, at the time, the mayor of New York, which was Ed Koch, would not recognize AIDS and would not say the word AIDS or recognize that there was a problem with HIV and a problem with, that there was no education or, spread in New York City. The first person to ever recognize AIDS was Ronald Reagan, the president, and that was like in the late 80s. So it's interesting. David Hockney is a big name in the art world, and he started painting these dachshunds and sort of hasn't stopped. He's alive, but he's sort of an older man now, and he's really in love with, he says he makes no apologies, this is a direct quote, "I make no apologies for my apparent subject matter. These two dear little creatures are my friends." Because people sort of poke fun that he's getting a little hokey, at his older age. You'll notice that the dog was sort of a smaller part of artwork in the beginning of my slideshow, and now you're seeing that the dog is becoming everything. Like, for instance, these are individual paintings, and the dog takes up the entire picture plane. On the left, they're both made by Jeff Koons, but on the left is in Balboa, Spain, right next to the Guggenheim Museum, and this is called Puppy, and it was erected in 1992. It's stainless steel, soil, and flowering plants, and it's in the traditional English style of gardening, meaning that on the left it is exactly symmetrical to the right, and this is a large-scale sculpture, just like the one on the right is. The right one is a different material, and it is supposed to look like a balloon dog, and it's extremely large-scale. It's hard to tell. But you might see these now in gift shops because they're becoming kind of popular. I've seen like coin banks and things like that. The original man who created this is Jeff Koons, but now there's like, there's sort of a spin on that. There's a mass product being made of that. And winding down, we have Lucian Freud. Can't read it. I don't know why that's happening, but this is called Double Portrait. And Lucian Freud was a male artist that was the grandson of Sigmund Freud. And he depicted dogs several times in his long career. What I found interesting was that dogs were never portrayed alone, and that this is less of a portrait of two people or two figures laying next to each other, and more of the silence that is taking place and the communication and relationship that's taking place. So in other words, it's less about who are they, what are their names. It's more about what are they thinking and how are they feeling. So it's trying to emote feelings from the viewer. And as dog lovers, as we all are in this room, we can pick up on that. So it's really a relationship. And my last slide is George W. Bush, after he left office. I thought it was interesting that he decided to do portraits of not only animals, he did soldiers too. He wrote a book about soldiers that he painted portraits of that were very brave. But he memorialized one of his dogs on the right named Barney, and he's still doing it today. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
I think he put out a book.
Did he put out a book of his dogs?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. He's not, the best in the world, but I don't think he's terrible either. I mean, I think it's interesting that he's bold enough to break. I think it's kind of interesting, quirky, that he would go from president to a
Really relaxed.
Right, exactly. It's very relaxing, I bet. So, well, that concludes the talk. Thank you so much. And my next one, as I said, I'm going to be doing this every first Friday. The next one is the first Friday in December, and it is titled Van Gogh's Frenemy, Paul Gauguin. And I won't spoil it, but Paul Gauguin is not my favorite person in the world. He definitely wasn't Van Gogh's. So there's a rich history of Paul Gauguin and Van Gogh coming up soon.
I think I read about that when we were at Van Gogh Museum.
Oh, that's right. You went to Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And so, what do you remember? Because I know it was a year ago.
So yeah. I don't know.
You have to brush up.
I'll have to check with you and see if that's what I thought.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's interesting. That's an interesting link. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions or want to add anything?
No, that's great.
Yeah, it's a lot of information. I'm sure your head is spinning because I know I go fast, but
No, but it was cute to see how, like you said, that they were once part of the picture and then they became like the subject.
right.
And that's kind of how they did with us too, that they've invaded our lives, that it's just kind of
Yeah, that's
like
interesting.
an art
You're right.
that, we make them just a family member as well, that it's,
Mhm.
It could be a child.
Went from the working
Yeah.
part of the household to the
Part of it.
bed warmer.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the bed warmer.
the picture of the dog on the bed. That, I mean, any dog parent has seen that.
Oh yeah.
That you don't want to disturb them, that they're so sweet.
Yeah. You don't kick them off. You
No.
wait. You sleep in
Yeah,
6
you just
inches.
see how cute they are.
If that's what it
You
takes.
can just see how them,
Yeah, I agree. And I just thought it was so interesting putting this together, that there were so many celebrities that have taken to dogs, and also just artists that they can pick any topic. And this is throughout time. It's not a new thing. I focused a lot on the 20th century and the 19th century, but you can see throughout time, dogs have held like a special place in our hearts, and which I never felt until I got my pug, because I wasn't a pet owner. My parents didn't allow it. So my pug is 10 and a half now, but for 10 and a half years, I felt this like amazing opening of my heart that I never felt before.
I was gifted a William Wegman calendar maybe before I even had Charlie. And when I went to get Charlie, I wanted a Weimaraner.
Oh,
Based
see that?
on the William Wegman Like just how much,
Yeah.
I just loved them. They were so cute. It's like, and the puppies are just, you
Oh,
know,
they're beautiful.
long legs, and
Mhm.
so they're so cute. And but yeah, that was how I fell in love with dogs.
See that?
That just kind of seeing them in a different perspective, and
Mm-hmm.
that I just wanted one of my own to
Mm-hmm.
play dress up with.
Yeah. I mean, those are cute.
And they're so cute. Like there was even there. I think that they were on. He did an episode with Sesame Street.
Oh, he
Like
did?
and the dogs like had they
You remember that?
they interacted with the kids.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
That's funny. I have to look that up. This was like
Well,
going
then,
way
like,
back.
eating and
Like, how did he do that? How
I
did
don't
he train
know.
them?
I have no idea.
They're very
He's been doing
obedient
it for a
dogs.
long
A long time.
Yeah, I felt like he's been around a long time.
Yeah, I think he started like in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Well, when I looked him up, he was still alive, still kicking, still talking, you know, doing talks and stuff.
Yeah.
So he's very active.
Yeah.
So I guess he's considered a photographer, right?
Yep.
But just sort of has
I
this
don't know if he
quirky-
does any other
I don't think so.
photography.
I don't think-
Seems like that's it. And they're
Yeah.
probably just as pets too.
Yeah.
Right.
It's another interesting tie-in. You were showing the picture of the food dogs originally,
Yeah.
which typically were very big statues outside, you know, palaces and temples and such. There's a lot of research that shows that like the Tibetan Mastiff that you still have now, which can be upwards of 5 feet at the top
Yeah.
of its head, and massive, were bred specifically to look like
Those.
the food dogs.
Oh.
So, and they are
I can see it. They have that huge
they
skull.
are guard dogs. Like
Yeah.
they
Mhm.
were also raised to like you're going out to hunt for the day. You leave the Tibetan Mastiff in the house
To
with the
protect,
baby,
yeah.
Mhm.
and
With the baby,
Yeah.
they would trust. Oh, the dog
yeah.
with
So
the baby.
they were
Wow.
bred as household like nannies and guardians of the house, with the idea that they were the embodiment of those food dogs. And they're still like
You
to
still
this
see
day
them. I
find-
see them
find
at
massive.
Chinese restaurants,
Yeah.
even in sculpture gardens that we go to, or
They-
nurseries. You can buy them. I'm sure you've seen.